What's going on out there, people? I'm Frank Persico, and today I want to talk to you about vintage tube amps and whether or not it might be time to sell your vintage tube amps. In other words, are vintage tube amps destined to become obsolete? Now, let me just say, I love the sound of vintage tube amps. I own two Fender Princeton Reverbs, 1971s, that are silver face, and I own two Vibrolux Reverbs that are 1971, 1972, also silver face. And I love the way they sound. I love their versatility. There's a certain mojo about tube amps, especially vintage tube amps, especially Fender vintage tube amps, that I personally love. And, they're inspiring to play. The sound is just something about it. It's the sound that we're kind of used to hearing on old records. Maybe that's what it is. And I've owned other tube amps in the past. I've owned other vintage Princeton reverbs, and I owned a 1967 blackface deluxe reverb, which, like a fool, about 2 years ago, I sold when I first sold my house and moved into my apartment. And I wish I didn't sell it. I also sold my vintage Princeton reverb at that same period of time, 2 to 3 years ago. And when I went to sell them, they sold within 2 weeks. They sold like hotcakes, okay? So here I am now. I have 4 vintage amps, like I just said, and I decided I wanted to sell one of my Vibrolux reverbs because I don't really use it, and it's just kind of sitting around. And when I bought it, I'm not going to lie, I had the idea that I could probably sell it for more than I paid for it, or at least sell it quickly if I wanted to not own it anymore and get my money back. Well, let's just say that this thing has been for sale on Reverb and on Craigslist for about 3 months, and the only bites I've gotten have been scammers, okay? I haven't gotten any interested people looking to buy it, and I'm selling it at a fairly good price, or what would be considered a good price historically for the amount that these amps have gone for. And I can't help but wonder, is it that people just aren't interested in playing tube amps anymore? Is it that this younger generation of guitar players they didn't grow up playing tube amps, so they just go for the digital alternatives that are out there, and they are good. They're not as good as tube amps in terms of the fact that they don't sound exactly the same as tube amps. Whether they're as good or not, I guess that's up to the person, the player, to decide. We know that tube amps are not as convenient. We know that. But have they lost their mojo? And am I going to get stuck with these tube amps that I now own? Now, I shouldn't really use the word stuck. I love them. I love playing through them, and I'll never not have the tube amps that I like to play through, okay? But let's just say I want to get rid of one of them, and I'm having a hard time getting rid of it. And I wonder if it's just the way things are going to be, or is it maybe something temporary, being that we're in this sort of like economic slowdown. Prices of Rolex watches have dropped, and a lot of things that have been inflated in price are now coming down, and people are tightening their budget in response to this like kind of iffy economic situation that we're in with high interest rates and whatnot. Maybe that's the reason that I'm having a hard time selling this amp. I wonder if maybe if it was a deluxe reverb blackface or something that was, a real hot model, maybe it would sell quicker. I don't know. Maybe if I listed one of my Princetons, it would sell quicker because Princetons seem to be more in demand. Smaller size, they're a little bit, they got a niche that the Princeton just kind of sits in that nothing else does. I thought the Vibrolux had its own fan base, and I gotta say, I'm surprised it's taking so long to sell. And again, I just wonder if this is going to be the new normal for tube amps. Is this going to be the way it goes for vintage tube amps? Are they a thing of the past? I know that Fender twin reverbs have kind of just come down. They're very cheap, and they have been for a long time. But that makes sense to me. Those are very big, heavy amps. They have a very limited application. But a Vibrolux, it records well. It's good for a small club. it's just a really versatile and relatively small amp. But is it also too big for this new generation of players, or this new environment of the types of venues that have live music? Do they no longer require us to have 40-watt or 35-watt tube amps? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. Is it time to get out of your vintage tube amps while you still can? That being said, for those of you, and I'm one of them, who love the sound, who are inspired by the sound, who cares what the market does? You know, this might be your chance to snap up a great tube amp that you always wanted at a bargain price and play the shit out of it and enjoy it. Okay? So for people like you, that's a great thing. But for me currently right now, I kind of have the tube amps that I need, and the ones that I want to get rid of, I'm wondering if I'm just going to have to be stuck with them for a while. Anyway, your comments and thoughts are most welcome. I'm Frank Persico. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.